Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your new week out there so far. Here to bring you the latest on many things in this morning's video. We got a whole lot to talk about. The first thing we'll speak on is the tropics. The National Hurricane Center now forecasting a hurricane out this area in the Caribbean. As of right this second, still labeled PTC 18, which stands for Potential Tropical Cyclone 18 by the time a lot of folks watch this video. In fact, we might catch an update in this video. This will be Tropical Storm Rafael. So that is our next name. So we're going to speak on everything we know about this system. Like I said, this is going to strengthen in the shorter term, but it likely will weaken once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. But where is it going to go once it gets into the Gulf? So we're going to go over all model guidance. We'll speak on global hurricane models. We'll talk a little bit about impacts, and we'll just speak on what's driving this system so late in hurricane season, even speak a little bit on steering currents. After we get done doing that, we will have a special segment for the severe weather threat for today because it is going to be pretty significant. A very large area runs the risk of strong tornadoes. So we have two really main highlighted things to talk about in this morning's video, and it's always tough doing that because there's so much to cover. But as always, we're going to get very detailed with you folks. And then after we get done doing that, we will discuss what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for your money. And of course, the severe weather threat is happening, but we're going to kind of separate that, if you will. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can do that and so other people have an opportunity to do so too. So let's get rocking this morning. So this is PTC 18. Like I said, this will likely be a tropical storm by the time a lot of you folks watch this. But this is it. It seems like we've been watching this for about 2 or 3 weeks now. I don't think it's been quite that long. We've been watching it in models for about 2 weeks though. But this is it. It's starting to get more organized now. In fact, if you look right here, I'm going to try to draw on this a little bit. Let's use pink. There is a pretty decent cyclonic spin right into here. And I think that is probably where your actual low-level circulation is going to really get going. So this is going to continue to develop and form into an actual tropical storm and eventually a hurricane and go in this general direction. This is going to bring impacts to Jamaica. I know I got some people tuning in from this area. You guys are definitely going to get impacts from a tropical system. Is this going to develop quickly into a hurricane before scraping you guys probably to the east by tomorrow morning? I'm sorry, to the west. It's possible. The waters down here are still pretty warm, well into the 80s, so this could strengthen at a pretty, I would say, a decent clip. It really could. So what happens once it gets right here? I think it'll still be a hurricane. Then we have to watch once it gets kind of into this area. Is it going to go like this? Is it going to go like this and kind of, get closer to the Gulf coastline? I think the further north it gets up into the Gulf of Mexico, the more quicker it's going to weaken with cooler sea surface temperatures and other things that's really going to prevent this to maintain strength too, that we'll talk about later in this update. So this is what's going on right now. This thing is well on its way to becoming stronger. In fact, it is becoming stronger right now. The latest from the National Hurricane Center. This is the latest cone, so expect to become a tropical storm sometime today. Jamaica, you guys have tropical storm warnings right at this second. By the time that we get into about 1 a.m. Tonight, so Tuesday morning, 1 a.m., it's a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm. Cayman Islands, this system is going to go right through you guys. I mean, pretty much between both the two areas of islands. This could very well be a hurricane. No doubt you will have a tropical storm going right through the Cayman Islands, but could this strengthen into a hurricane? It definitely could. You guys have hurricane watches and, of course, tropical storm warnings. And then this is definitely going to strengthen. I would say definitely. It's forecast to do so, but most likely will, into a hurricane before approaching Cuba sometime Wednesday, probably the first half of the day, I would say. Makes a landfall sometime Wednesday into the western sections of Cuba, and then could still be a hurricane into the Gulf of Mexico into Thursday morning. In fact, it says it could be a hurricane all day Thursday into Friday morning in the southern Gulf of Mexico, and this will probably spook some people. But I'm going to talk about why it shouldn't as we, continue to move deeper into this video. But a tropical storm still forecasted to be here right in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico by around 1 a.m. Saturday. So we're going to be talking about this all week. Here's a zoomed out look at the cone. I could see this cone weakening as far as the strength and what they think it's going to be around this time frame this weekend. And I could also see this cone kind of tilting this way. And once again, we're going to talk about why here in a second. So the latest model guidance that we have, and let's make sure there's not a new update from the National Hurricane Center. There is not. In fact, I have a feeling that they'll probably drop a new update sometime in the middle of doing this video. But as of right now, this is the latest 4 a.m. update. There's probably going to be a 7 a.m. update soon, but they could upgrade this to a tropical storm. If it does, folks, I mean, it's forecast to do so. It doesn't really change anything I'm talking about in this video. But the latest GFS, we're going to start all this off by Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning says it's a 999 millibar low just west of Jamaica, bringing a lot of tropical storm conditions and activity in Jamaica. Gusty winds. I mean, I'm sure you'll be getting 40 to 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts, some heavy rain. But this, pretty quickly moves away from you guys. By the time it's Tuesday evening, you're still getting some showers in Jamaica and things like that. But, Tuesday evening, I would say Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, this conditions go downhill pretty quick in the Cayman Islands, and this thing is still strengthening in the southern coastline of the western areas of Cuba, and then hits Cuba Wednesday morning as a 978 millibar low based off the GFS. That's definitely a Category 1 hurricane at least, and then it slips into the Gulf of Mexico, still at a hurricane Wednesday evening. In fact, we'll just go on and take a look at this frame here, and here it is at the bottom of your screen. Does this continue to move? We're getting a big slug of moisture into the southeast. That's something we need to talk about too, and we will. But we're getting into Thursday morning, still a Category 1 hurricane Thursday morning, and then sort of maintain strength throughout the day. So if I said Saturday morning, I'm sorry, I meant Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon, and then this steadily weakens. Friday morning, it's a 992 millibar tropical storm, and then by the time we're into Friday evening, you see how the numbers kind of rise, if you will. It's risen right into this area. It weakens pretty quick into like a tropical storm, and then it does eventually make a landfall. Sometimes Saturday morning is maybe a depression, a weak tropical storm, maybe around Mobile, but I mean, this is just one model run. Okay, it brings a lot of moisture across the deep south and the mid south, and I just have to watch what it does after that. But the Euro, we'll kind of move this quicker here. Tuesday morning, right beside Jamaica, just a tropical storm. The Euro really doesn't strengthen this into a hurricane, but it is worth looking at just due to track. It keeps this as a tropical storm most of the life of this system, but the Euro has consistently shown this kind of slipping further west in the Gulf of Mexico and actually trying to dig this into the Bay of Campeche almost. In fact, we get all the way to Saturday morning. This is just a tropical storm cruising on warmer sea surface temperatures as opposed to if it was in the northern section of the Gulf of Mexico. So it's able to kind of maintain strength down here, very slowly just kind of crawls along across the southern Gulf of Mexico and eventually does weaken and just kind of moves into Mexico. Euro definitely shows something different there. What about the Euro AI model, which has done well this hurricane season? We move this into Wednesday morning, makes landfall as a tropical storm, but we're forecasting a hurricane. They're leaning towards the GFS and the hurricane models. Look at this big slug of moisture into the southeast. We got to continue to watch that. Definitely there's people that just do not know how to use the right wording. So, I saw a post from somebody in the mountains that have a ton of followers, just, I don't know, just using the wrong wording as far as, it's got everybody freaking out because of the heavy rain that's supposedly on the way for the mountains. I don't think this is going to compare to anything like that, folks. If anything, the mountains will get a lot less rain than, say, areas of Georgia and South Carolina. But, of course, things could change. But a 997 millibar low tropical storm, maybe Category 1 hurricane into a Thursday morning. And it kind of follows a mixture between the Euro and the GFS, starts making this go more so east to west, but does weaken it, and eventually makes landfall pretty much right where the GFS does. Timing a little bit different, but brings a lot of tropical moisture into Alabama, Mississippi, and surrounding states as we get into this weekend. But as a much weaker storm, this is not going to be a hurricane when it hits the Gulf coastline, if it does hit the Gulf coastline. Now, what about some of these hurricane models? And they're still running, but luckily we do have the latest guidance, which is awesome. This is Jamaica right here. So this is starting for Tomorrow morning, we're getting a lot of outer bands in Jamaica, tropical storm force conditions, 40, 50, 60 mile per hour winds are possible. And then we got to watch the Cayman Islands. This has a chance to strengthen right on top of the Cayman Islands. Here it goes, hitting it right here. What do you call it? Grand Cayman, I believe. This is getting into Tuesday evening. We're going to have a strengthening tropical system right on top of you guys. You guys hunker down. Hopefully this is the last tropical system you have to worry about this hurricane season. I know you guys got heavily impacted by Beryl, I believe. But this continues to march northwest and then strengthens as it approaches the western tip of Cuba. And the HFA model, make sure that is the right model, has this making landfall. It is. So around Wednesday, midday, as a Category 1 or 2 hurricane in the far western southern shorelines of Cuba, crosses over Cuba, probably weakens a little bit, maybe strengthens back while it's still under relatively warm waters of the southern Gulf of Mexico. And this is as far out as we can go. Still a Category 1 or 2 hurricane as it pulls away from Cuba. And this is as far as I can go on this model. If we kind of go back and look at the OOZ, has an even stronger system, so it's actually trending a little bit weaker. But it does weaken this. Well, no, it does not. Actually, well, here it goes. I'm about to say, like, dude, are you going to weaken this? But we get into Friday morning. I mean, this is still, based off the run from overnight, still a pretty strong hurricane Friday morning. But look how that number begins to drop considerably. Rise considerably as it gets closer to the Louisiana coastline. Eventually, just weakens it all the way to almost 1,000 millibar low. So even with the aggressive hurricane models, which tend to be right, still having this at a pretty strong hurricane in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, it weakens it pretty quick as it gets close to the Gulf coastline. And then the HFB model, which goes 96 hours out, so that's good. Really strengthens this on top of the Cayman Islands, especially the larger island of the Cayman Islands here, the further west one. 983 millibar low, going right over Grand Cayman. I think that's what y'all call it. It makes me want to check, but you have a Category 1 hurricane going right over you guys as we're getting into Tuesday evening. So I definitely think you're going to get upgraded to hurricane warnings. And man, it stinks. My phone is about slower than molasses. But if we look right here, let's see. I just want to do this on the fly, guys. I hate when I butcher different areas right here. Yeah, Cayman Islands here. It doesn't tell me what y'all exactly call this. Anyways, I'm getting all off track, but a lot of model guides has this hitting this island right here. Okay, so we continue to move forward here, and yeah, we're gonna have to go back to this. I'm all over the place. That's gonna happen sometimes. We'll go back to the HFB model, and a little bit too far ahead. But yeah, the HFB model really gets aggressive with this, really strengthens this between the Cayman Islands and the western areas of Cuba. For example, it's around a 983 millibar Category 1 hurricane Tuesday evening hitting the Cayman Islands. And then it strengthens very quickly into almost a major hurricane. And this could happen, guys. I'm not ruling this out at all. I'm not ruling out any strength of intensity in the Caribbean. Not even a little bit. Okay? I really think that this could pop off in the Caribbean. It's just once it gets into the Gulf, that's a big question mark. But we don't want this to happen in the western areas of Cuba. This would not be good, but it does begin to weaken once it gets to the Gulf of Mexico. Could re-strengthen a little bit more. And then this is as far out as it goes. And if we turn around and move this back to the OOZ, what does this show? It does show it weakening pretty fast as it does get into the northern Gulf of Mexico. That is the southern sections of Louisiana. So it does show this weakening pretty quick, regardless of how strong it is, say, in the central and southern Gulf of Mexico. Now, if it does continue to trend, say, further west and southwest, it could definitely hold on to strength more. That's for sure. But as far as what's promoting such intensification in the shorter term, and I've been talking about this for about a week, saying, hey, if this is going to hit a high-end scenario, it's going to do it in the Caribbean. There's a lot of air being dispersed out from the system in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So this is around where the system is right let's go to Tuesday morning. It's beginning to strengthen at a pretty moderate pace at least. So the blues and the greens up here, the yellows, these are winds, 35, 40,000 feet up in the air. So if I start drawing this a little bit, so this is our system. It's spinning like this, cyclonically in the northern hemisphere, right? Okay, I know there's some terrible circles and arrows and stuff like that. In the upper levels of the atmosphere, you got air moving away from the system like this. Okay, let's look at a little bit weird right here. But air is moving away from the system. It's being dispersed out. We call it divergence aloft. And when air is being dispersed out away from these systems, it allows for more air to rise, and that gets pushed out. Then more air rises. Just a continuous cycle of rising air. Rising air allows for shower and storm activity. Shower and storm activity creates a moist environment. A moist environment allows for the strengthening of these tropical systems. So that's the kind of environment this system will be working with in the shorter term, in the Caribbean especially. A lot of air being dispersed outward. Okay, can keep this going here. Now, the atmosphere, the upper levels of the atmosphere begins to change as we start to get into the Gulf of Mexico. And we get it to about Thursday morning. Still could be a hurricane at this point. Probably freaking everybody out on the Gulf coastline. But the thing that I watch for is this time of the year. I mean, we're in November. Okay, we're getting a lot of westerly flow, especially to the west. So you got all this flow coming in like this and then jolting off like that. And this is starting to hit the system with a lot of wind shear on the western side of what will be Rafael. Okay, and when this happens, it interferes with the flow around the system. And when it does that, it allows for dry air to get wrapped into the circulation. So the western side of the system starts to get flooded with dry air because of this stout westerly flow hitting the system on the western side of the system. So that allows for dry air to start to get involved into the system, and then that's why this dramatically weakens as it creeps closer to the Gulf coastline. And you can see this happen here. Very moist environment down here in the Caribbean. Okay, and then, I mean, this thing is just living its best life, even as it gets off the northern shores of Cuba. I mean, it has a very moist environment, and then we switch this, and let's look at this right here. Watch what happens. Fetch of moisture getting all the way into the Carolinas. Okay. This is still a hurricane potentially Thursday morning. Still is shrouded with moist air. And then that westerly flow is starting to hit the system. Starting to eat up the moist air on the western side of the system. And then it eats it up so much that by the time we're on a Friday morning, it's a totally different atmosphere surrounded by this tropical system. We have dry air completely getting wrapped into the actual cyclonic circulation of this tropical system. And that's why you watch this number begin to rise significantly, because I mean, this thing is just fully wrapped in dry air at this point. So as far as what's steering this, guys, I mean, there's a big ridge over the eastern US, and I think that's why this is really trended towards kind of moving west, because the flow around this ridge, as we've talked about many times with steering currents, the flow around this ridge is going like this. Okay, so it's going to steer our tropical system, which is this little blob of blue right here, a little bit more that way. In fact, it could kind of go like this. Now this system, because at this point it's still maybe a hurricane, is really trying to push up against this ridge as much as it can. But as it does that, it's just going to get hit by a lot of flow going like this in the upper levels of the atmosphere. In the mid to kind of lower levels of the atmosphere, the flow's kind of going like this. So a lot of crisscrossing out here. But this system's going to try to go right into this. But as it gives it all it can to really plow north, it's also just plowing itself into a very unfavorable environment. Okay, so it doesn't know it's doing that, but it will be doing that, if that makes sense. And so if you keep this in motion, you'll see how the blue on your screen kind of just dissipates, kind of goes away. It gets ate up. It's November, guys. I mean, it's not like it's August or September or even October where the environment's just more favorable. So that's an update there. As far as rainfall, folks, a lot of this is just driven off a big pool north of moisture into the southeast states here. Not completely driven off moisture from Rafael, but there's just a big pooling mechanism out of the Gulf of Mexico, allowing for a big push of moisture across Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina, even areas of Alabama. So this is rainfall between now and Saturday morning. Check out the rainfall across Florida, the central and southern half of Georgia, a few inches of rain. And let's head on up to South Carolina also. And check out all this rain. We need this. I mean, they're going for 2 inches of rain at my house. Thank the good Lord. Low country of South Carolina, even more. We have to watch to see how far north this creeps. Yes, you could get some rain in the mountains. Let's hope this doesn't trend much more north than this. We could use a little bit of rain in the mountains, but man, we don't need an inch of rain in 30 minutes. That's not going to serve anybody well up here. So we'll continue to watch this. As far as an update, and let's see if we do have an update on the tropics here. Another update. We don't. So as far as an update on the severe weather, this is WeatherWise. Awesome site to use. web.weatherwise.app is the link there. Type it in. Very easy to toggle with and move around. Trying to work where we can kind of turn off these alerts here so there's not so much flooding your screen. But they're working on this app. It'll be awesome to use in the wintertime. But let's give you an update on severe weather, folks. This is a pretty big deal. We have an enhanced risk today, level 3 out of 5 of severe weather. This includes Oklahoma City, north of the Dallas area. Could get extended south all the way up to Lebanon, Missouri. This does include Springfield, Fort Smith, Fayetteville, Tulsa. Slight risk extends almost all the way down to Austin, Texas, all the way up to almost Quincy, Missouri. But just to kind of zoom into a couple of these areas so you can maybe see where you live. Hopefully it comes in pretty clear. But this is the highlighted region for sure. Let's zoom out a little bit. What is this? What's driving this? The tornado risk, folks, is serious. Okay, in the yellow area, that is a 10% risk of a tornado. In the black outlined area with the black dashes going in between, that's a 10% risk of a strong tornado. EF2 or higher. Okay, if you live in this area, this is a big deal, folks. Okay, in the brown area, that's a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in the given location. Okay, and then the wind threat today is also serious. You don't have a risk of significant winds, but a pretty large, and this could change, pretty large area has a 30% risk in this red area of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. The yellow area is a 15% risk of that. Okay, and then the hail threat, just a 15% risk area, but this could upgrade. And if you live in the yellow area, Oklahoma City down to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Fayetteville, Fort Smith, everybody in between, you have a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. So obviously the highlighted state here is Oklahoma, but it does show the portion of Missouri, Arkansas, and northern Texas that's really under the gun. If we miss anybody in this little outlook here, we'll cover you in the South Central timestamp later in the video. But let's start off this morning. Already a lot of active alerts ongoing. But the thing that we watch for, and I really think this could be one big sweep through. Of course, we're going to have a lot of shower and storm activity in western Arkansas, maybe even eastern Oklahoma before the main line moves in. So we watch these cells, but what I really get concerned about is kind of this sector right into here. So this is around time is over here. It's around 3 p.m. Back this up 1 hour because this is in Eastern time. This is in around 3 p.m. Central time. You see all these storms right into here in central to eastern Oklahoma. We back it up here, Oklahoma City. You guys could really get it around early this afternoon, right after lunchtime. Line of storms will sweep through, but the environment really becomes unstable a few hours to your east. So these storms right here from Tulsa, down to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, these storms will be like semi-discrete in nature, semi-discrete supercells. They will be rotating like crazy. And by the time we get into 5 p.m., this is kind of the danger time frame here. These cells could be even dangerous up here in southeast Kansas. But the storm stretching from just south of the Dallas-Fort Worth area all the way to the Texarkana area, it's around 5 p.m. You see these storms here? All of these could be quite dangerous today. And then we start to get into about 7 p.m. The sun is set, and we could have an ongoing nocturnal tornado threat in the far eastern counties of Oklahoma all the way down into northeast Texas, western Arkansas, and now it's starting to get into southwest Missouri. You see this little kidney bean looking storm right here, kind of just east of Springfield. All these storms are going to be dangerous, folks, and they'll really start to slow down too. So the flooding threat is already ongoing right now. It could continue to rise overnight. It's around 10 p.m. These storms will continue over the area, and by the time you're around 2 a.m. after midnight, these storms are still cruising through Arkansas and then we wake up tomorrow morning and things are in the clear after that. Some cooler air will filter in. But folks, this will be dangerous today. You look at the significant tornado parameter, the higher the numbers, the better the ingredients for tornadoes. So this will rise pretty quick this afternoon. So around Oklahoma City, it will rise to a 4 or 5. And then check out how it rises in eastern Oklahoma, even southeast. I really want to watch southeast Kansas too. If you live in that area, the few counties in southeast Kansas, definitely be aware. And then you see it rising down here in northern and northeast Texas, but it really spikes late this afternoon into this evening. You got some 4s, 5s, 6s, even some 7s in that purple. Man, it really does spike here. And this continues, I mean, to 7 p.m. where you see these colors here, the 3s, 4s, and 5s. I mean, you got ingredients for tornadoes. It can happen. I've seen the significant tornado parameters very low, and there'll be multiple tornadoes. I see them very high, and they're not really be much of anything. So it just tells you the ingredients. Is the atmosphere going to tap into these ingredients? That's another question. Okay, and then things begin to clear out overnight, and it drops. But if you're looking at the updraft velocity swath with this, of course, it is showing a lot of highlighted areas that have rotation in these storms. So this is just telling us where this particular run of the HER model is showing rotation with these storms. Doesn't mean that you're going to get a tornado if you live in a county that has a slash of yellow or green over it. It just means that just know that this entire area runs the risk of a tornado today. So if you do look at winds, let's look at winds in this area. 30, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. Any kind of significant wind gusts, over 65 miles per hour, we'll have to see. But as of now, they don't really have much of a risk for that. As far as the ingredients, I'll go over this really quick. But that low-level wind field will begin to really spike, I would say, this afternoon. So over this area right here, you have that 40 to 50, maybe even higher, not low-level jet. It's screeching across all of eastern Texas, too. You can see the surface low somewhere into here as the wind barbs are kind of going crazy. But this is your kinematic low-level wind field right into here. And a lot of wind energy in the atmosphere. It's really cranking. So what is that overlapping? What is the thermodynamic atmosphere? Your dew points, your Cape levels. That's a big question with this too. And it even spikes. I mean, this is getting into like later this afternoon, really this evening. See how that low-level jet really spikes to about 60 knots. You might get an increased risk of winds in this area, not to drive a moderate risk, but you might get a risk of significant winds thrown in this area with this highway speed winds about a mile above our heads, 850 millibars, about 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air, give or take 1,000 feet. But if you're looking at this low-level moisture here, it's certainly there. Very moist air. This will really rise dramatically throughout the afternoon. Eastern Oklahoma. You'll notice that it'll get very humid. I mean, Dallas-Fort Worth area, dew points will rise all the way into the low 70s in certain areas, but certainly widespread upper 60s. So the moist environment, check it off the box. It'll be there. It's very moist, and then that cold front will sweep through. So this will drive, obviously, some hefty Cape levels. If we go down here and we look at mixed layer Cape, let's see if this will kind of go for us here. Yeah, so Cape levels well over 1,000 joules per kilogram. Right here in this area of eastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas, western Arkansas, all the way up into southwestern Missouri. Even if you just had 1,000 joules per kilogram, this will be certainly sufficient enough for severe weather. But you're definitely going to have the overlapping ingredients for sure in this area today. Oof, this is a long video, folks. But as far as what's happening weather-wise today, we've already spoken on the severe weather threat, but talking about really everything else. There's a system moving into the Pacific Northwest. System like 50 over the last several days. All the weather is basically moving in the middle of the country, moving southwest to northeast because it's riding around a ridge right here in this area down here. So this is getting pinwheeled around the southeast, and then it kind of comes back down into the northeast. A lot of this precipitation over the northeast is not really hitting the ground. Some of it might be. You'll have to let me know. But all this is hitting the ground. We got a lot of moisture across the middle of the country. No active severe alerts right this second. That's going to change quick. And then we got some snow flying around the Rockies in New Mexico and Colorado. Denver could definitely get wintry again later this week, and we'll speak on that when we can. There's just so much other stuff to talk about for today. Watches, warnings, and advisories. Tons of flood watches over the middle of the country. We got tons of winter weather alerts from the system ongoing right this second. It's quite windy. Winter storm warnings in the Rockies and New Mexico, Colorado. Winter weather advisories everywhere else. And then you see these winter weather alerts, these wind alerts. These are, high winds warnings. You got blizzard warnings and the highest elevations of Montana in this red. You can tell it's the change of the season, guys. Winter storm warnings in the pink, winter weather advisories in the purple. So we got red flag warnings, fire danger starting to get, there's a lot going on. As far as the risk of excessive rainfall, we do have a slight risk stretching from lower Michigan all the way down to eastern Texas. So this entire yellow area, we run a 15% risk of excessive rainfall. Okay, so we can get a lot in this area today for sure. So let's talk about the southeast. All right, and not a whole lot going on. Seems like I've just said that over and over again. We are going to start to get some onshore flow shower activity that's going to kickstart finally, we're going to get some rain across the Carolinas and Georgia. I mean, I'm actually pretty excited about it. It's actually going to be a pretty rainy week, which I'm down for. It's not going to be rain. It's not going to be cool enough to start, singing Guns N' Roses, Cold November Rain, but it will be a mild, warm November rain, and we will certainly take it. And by the time we get into this afternoon, we're going to start to get some rain across Georgia, the low country of South Carolina. Not a lot, but as we get into this evening, could just be an evening where you just get some occasional showers across the middle sections of South Carolina. Same thing with Georgia and Florida especially. And this will continue all the way through the overnight hours. And, we're just finally going to start to get some light rain. You see, these storms are trying their hardest to get into the southeast, but they can't because of this consistent ridge in place. So all the energy keeps weakening as it hits this ridge, or either just scooting off to the northeast. But things will change, certainly, as we get into... Okay, weird phone call there. Things will certainly change as we continue to move forward for sure. Now, we move into the northeast here. It's pretty quiet. The radar shows stuff hitting the ground. Let me know if you're actually seeing it. Not a whole lot going on, though. As we're getting into this afternoon, some rain showers could eventually begin to fall in the interior New England area up there near the Canadian line. And then we start to get into northern Maine. We could get some rain mixing with some snow later this evening. Let me know if you do, if you're tuning in from that area. And then warm air aloft moves in, switches it back to rain, and we're just dealing with a light rain and light sprinkles scattered about across interior New England after that. So, I mean, you're going to start to get some moisture that creeps into this area. I really think the I-95 corridor is going to stay rainless, though, unfortunately. And then the south central U.S. There's obviously a lot going on. I just broke down the severe weather threat in another timestamp earlier in the video. But we're going to get these storms that are definitely going to have an opportunity to produce tornadoes and maybe even strong tornadoes. And, we got to just continue to watch out for this. And as we continue to move forward here, these storms will start to move into Arkansas. We're going to get this energy right here in Kansas. There's just a lot. There's a lot. This evening, we start to get into Missouri. A lot of shower and storm activity. We're just going to start to get a lot of rain down here overnight in Texas. Some storms start to enter the picture in western Louisiana. We got this actual low, this kind of upper low back here. This could try to sneak and switch rain to snow, maybe somewhere in the western sections of Kansas overnight. And then we wake up tomorrow morning, and we're still just dealing with this kind of broken line of storms across, I would say, areas west of the Mississippi River will be dealing with it, extreme. Pretty much, the coastal regions of Texas, which could use the rain all the way to Louisiana, especially Arkansas, the Boot Hill, Missouri, all the way up into Illinois. And rainfall between now and, the next day, I click a couple of these areas, it's an inch of rain, could go for an inch, inch and a half down here in Texas. We start to get to the Texarkana area, inch and a half to 2 inches of rain. Then we start to creep into Arkansas. Northwest Arkansas could pick up anywhere from 2.5 to 5 inches of rain in these areas. And then we start to get into southeastern portions of Missouri, folks. I would say away from the Boot Hill, 3 to 5 inches of rain is possible. So a lot of rain back here in eastern Oklahoma, anywhere from an inch to 2 inches of rain. So a lot of rain. You guys are definitely breaking any kind of drought conditions, that's for sure. Up here in the north central U.S., we'll continue just to get on and off showers in the same areas that have seen it. So we get into this afternoon, a lot of shower activity across the Midwest. And then we start to get into this evening. A big slug of moisture will start to move through the Midwest, Missouri, Illinois. This video is going on for very long here. And just so much. I knew this was going to be a long one. I knew it was. We started to get into this after midnight. See these storms moving through Missouri and Illinois, getting into southern Wisconsin. These could still be severe, and they could produce excessive rainfall too. And by the time I'm waking up tomorrow morning, we're getting this low. You want to watch this. Certainly could bring some bursts of heavy rain across Iowa, southern Minnesota, leaving Nebraska Monday morning. And then we just continue just to have I would say the general theme over the next 24 hours in this entire Midwest area is just some showers, some storms, especially overnight. And just a closer look at this, kind of this main area of energy. We'll get going again this evening. And you see these storms. I want to watch out in Missouri. You guys could definitely get some severe storms this afternoon into this evening. It's going to be a loud night in the state of Missouri, even into Illinois. And as we're getting into about this around 11 p.m., some storms will be cruising through Lebanon, Springfield, Columbia, Missouri. It'll be a rainy, heavy rain overnight for Rockford, Chicago, and then these storms will eventually move into St. Louis as you start to get to the wee hours of the morning tomorrow morning. You could certainly get a lot of rain in this area too. But speaking of the western U.S., we got a big system moving into the Pacific Northwest and the Northern Rockies. We'll continue to get some snow flying around into the afternoon areas and the higher elevations of Colorado and New Mexico. But eventually, you actually have winter weather advisories in the far northwest county of Texas and the far western county in the panhandle of Oklahoma. Rain will try to switch to snow this afternoon if you live. Maybe Guyman points west, getting into New Mexico and then southeast Colorado. You guys could get some rain switching to snow today, maybe a quick couple inches of wet snow. And then as we're moving into this evening, a big system into tomorrow morning really will start to introduce a lot of cold air with this too, a lot more cold air into the Northern Rockies, and things will start to switch pretty dramatically in this area for sure. You'll start to really turn to a snowy scene up here in the Northern Rockies. Snowfall between now and the next 48 hours. I'm very excited about weather-wise too. We'll be able to zoom into some of these areas without having to spend so much time pulling up every single graphic, but just a whole huge look at the western U.S. as far as how much snow could fall. A lot of this up here is what's on the way. A lot of this is kind of what's falling right now. But definitely getting the snowpack out west. Temperatures, slither of warm air all the way up into the Ohio Valley. Cooler in the northeast. A little bit of cold air damming could keep temperatures way cooler than forecast. These are always sneaky in situational kind of cat events. Could definitely be much cooler in this area than what's forecast. We'll have to watch that in the Carolinas. And then it is definitely cooler out west for sure. So yeah, it's a mouthful, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. You guys are some troopers that watch the entirety of these videos. I really appreciate it. And once again, I really think the length of these videos is what really holds my videos back on the algorithm on YouTube. I think that I don't think YouTube's going to push a video about the weather that's this long, but it is what it is. I don't know how people can cover all that in 8 minutes. I really don't. And the public can actually get valuable information from it. But if you can do it, you can do it. But God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you again soon.